it seems to be an ICBM, and perhaps the first use of an ICBM by Russia in this conflict. We don't know which type, though, and it seems to have landed in quite an important city, the Dnipro city, which is a big city logistical hub, and hit some kind of industrial structure, they're saying, causing some damage, but thankfully not widespread damage from this missile hit. It was part of a broader barrage of missiles, but there seems to have been one ICBM that was used in that. That's from the Ukraine side. We've had no word from Russia on it, but there has been chatter in the past few days that Russia was gearing up to deploy a new kind of missile against Ukraine, possibly an ICBM. They've been working on ultra-sophisticated, longer-range missiles. The question is, why would you use an ICBM against Ukraine? It is an intercontinental ballistic missile, and normally used, obviously, for longer-range purposes. But again, it's part of the symbolism that we're seeing, because we've got Ukraine and Russia both very much trying to position themselves to be in the strongest place that they can to negotiate. So it's all part of that behaviour that we're going to be seeing in the next few months, possibly in the lead up to Donald Trump's inauguration.
Yeah, and it follows Ukraine's use of both U.S. and UK-made missiles to attack Russia. Is this a new phase of the war?
Well, it's an escalation, absolutely, because we are seeing these new kinds of missiles being used, as you say, like long-range missiles being used by Ukraine, also on Russian soil for the first time. But it's part of that posturing. They're really trying to get themselves to have the upper hand before we get to negotiations. You can see that also with Russian troops pushing on the ground inside Ukraine. We know that they've been moving aggressively in some street fighting in a couple of key cities in eastern Ukraine. It looks like Kharkov, the Russian flag may have been raised in that city just today. So what we're seeing is Russia trying to accumulate as much Ukrainian land as possible. Equally, Ukraine is trying to get their troops to have as much Russian land over the border, because that's where they've been fighting also. So it's about, again, having all the cards that you can before you have to negotiate.
Looking at this from the Ukrainian side, I mean, if this weapon is now being introduced into the conflict, I mean, how widespread damage can it cause, and how is that perhaps going to shift how Ukraine has to think about its defences?
Well, it is a big missile, and obviously it didn't get fired at Kyiv because Kyiv has very sophisticated and capable air defences. So it was sent to a city that is less well defended from the air, obviously intended to get through. And we have not much information, but we do know, as I said, it caused a bit of damage, at least in an industrial area, possibly some factories. The danger, though, here is in all that posturing that I was mentioning, where they're all trying to get in the best position and they're firing more sophisticated missiles at each other, that you do get a miscalculation. I mean, this is a balancing act here to try and, get your cards on the table to negotiate. But it is a war, and you can get either side overstepping, and then you get something much more dangerous than the trajectory towards a negotiation.